Beneath the scorching sands of Egypt, where the sun scorches the earth and the winds whisper secrets of forgotten gods, the tombs of the pharaohs have stood as silent sentinels for millennia. These ancient crypts, sealed with rituals older than memory, guard not only the treasures of divine kings, but also the mysteries of a civilization that revered death as much as life. Among the most haunting legends to emerge from this realm of shadows is the Curse of the Pharaohs, a tale of vengeance from beyond the grave that has captivated the world since the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. But what if this curse is more than mere superstition? What if the deaths attributed to it conceal a labyrinth of conspiracy, woven by unseen hands with motives as dark as the underworld itself? In this exploration, we plunge into the historical accounts, eerie coincidences, and tantalizing theories that surround the curse, inviting you to question the boundaries between myth, reality, and the sinister unknown. In the fading light of November 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter stood at the threshold of history in Egypt's Valley of the Kings. After years of relentless excavation under the unrelenting sun, funded by the wealthy and adventurous Lord Carnarvon, Carter uncovered a sealed doorway bearing the cartouche of a forgotten pharaoh, Tutankhamun. On November 26th, the inner chamber was breached, revealing a treasure trove that would dazzle the world. Golden sarcophagi, jeweled artifacts, and the mummified remains of a boy king who had died over 3,000 years ago. The discovery was a triumph, a window into the splendor of ancient Egypt. But as the world marveled, a darker narrative began to unfurl. Barely 5 months later, on April 5, 1923, Lord Carnarvon lay dead in a Cairo hotel room. The official report cited a mosquito bite on his cheek that had become infected, leading to blood poisoning and pneumonia. Yet the timing was chilling. His death came mere weeks after he had entered the tomb and breathed its ancient air. Whispers of the supernatural spread like wildfire. Newspapers reported that the lights of Cairo flickered out at the precise moment of his passing, and back in England, his beloved dog allegedly let out a mournful howl and dropped dead in eerie synchronicity. The press seized upon these unsettling coincidences, proclaiming that the curse of the pharaohs had claimed its first victim. As the years passed, other deaths seemed to lend credence to the legend. George J. Gould Fenris, a wealthy American who visited the tomb shortly after its opening, succumbed to a mysterious fever in May 1923. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, the radiologist who X-rayed Tutankhamun's mummy, died of cancer in 1924. Howard Carter's personal secretary, Captain Richard Bethel, was found dead in his bed in 1929, reportedly smothered in circumstances that baffled investigators. Even Bethel's father, Lord Westbury, met a grim end, leaping to his death from a 7th-floor window shortly afterward, leaving behind a cryptic note hinting at despair over his son's fate. Each death added fuel to the fire, raising a chilling question. Were these tragedies the work of an ancient curse, or something far more sinister? To unravel the mystery of the curse of the pharaohs, we must first journey back to the beliefs that shaped ancient Egypt. The Egyptians viewed death not as an end, but as a passage to an eternal afterlife, where the soul of the deceased would be judged by Osiris, god of the underworld. Pharaohs, seen as divine intermediaries between gods and men, were buried with elaborate rituals, treasures, and spells to ensure their safe journey and continued power in the next world. Disturbing a tomb was considered a grave offense, not merely theft, but a violation of the cosmic order that could unleash divine wrath. Inscriptions warning of retribution have been found in some ancient tombs, though they are rare and often symbolic. For example, the tomb of Kentika Ikeki a noble from the Old Kingdom's 6th dynasty, bears a chilling warning. "As for all people who shall enter this tomb, unclean, I shall seize their necks like a bird. I shall wring them as one does a goose." Another inscription from the tomb of Antiphie threatens that the intruder will be judged by the great god. These warnings were likely meant to deter grave robbers, a common problem in ancient Egypt, by invoking fear of spiritual consequences rather than literal curses. Yet no such inscription was found in Tutankhamun's tomb. The absence of a documented curse raises immediate questions. If there was no explicit warning, why did the idea of a curse take hold so swiftly? Was it simply a product of superstition, amplified by the deaths that followed the tomb's opening? Or could it have been a narrative crafted or exploited by those with hidden agendas? To explore these possibilities, we must examine the deaths themselves, the official explanations, and the shadowy theories that suggest a deeper conspiracy at play. The official explanation for the deaths linked to Tutankhamun's tomb leans heavily on rational causes, dismissing the curse as a product of superstition and media hype. Lord Carnarvon's death, for instance, is attributed to a bacterial infection exacerbated by his already frail health. He had suffered from respiratory issues for years and was in poor condition even before entering the tomb. George J. Gouldwin's fever could have been contracted anywhere in Egypt, where sanitation standards of the time were far from modern. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed's death from cancer, while tragic, aligns with medical realities rather than supernatural vengeance. Howard Carter himself, the man most directly responsible for opening the tomb, lived until 1939, dying at the age of 64 from lymphoma, a death that hardly screams curse. A statistical study published in the British Medical Journal in 2002 analyzed the survival rates of those involved in the excavation. Of the 58 individuals present when the tomb was opened, only 8 died within a dozen years, a mortality rate not significantly different from the general population of the time. Lady Evelyn Herbert, Carnarvon's daughter, who was also present at the tomb's opening, lived until 1980, a full 57 years after the discovery. Howard Carter's own dismissal of the curse as Tommy Rot further bolsters the argument that the deaths were coincidental, not cursed. Scientific theories have also offered plausible explanations. One hypothesis suggests that ancient bacteria or fungi, such as Aspergillus flavus or Aspergillus niger, trapped within the sealed chamber, could have caused respiratory infections in those exposed. These pathogens, thriving in the damp, enclosed environment of the tomb, might have been particularly dangerous to individuals like Carnarvon, whose health was already compromised. Another recent study, published in 2023, proposes that radiation from uranium deposits in the bedrock of the Valley of the Kings could have accumulated in the tomb, potentially causing long-term health issues like cancer among early explorers. Such explanations are compelling, grounded in biology and physics, but they fail to account for the eerie timing of certain deaths or the whispers of conspiracy that have persisted for nearly a century. Among the most chilling theories surrounding the curse of the Pharaohs is one that casts a shadow over Aleister Crowley, a notorious occultist and self-proclaimed magician known as the wickedest man in the world. Crowley, born in 1875, was a figure shrouded in mystery and infamy. He founded the religious philosophy of Thelema, claimed to commune with ancient deities, and was deeply fascinated by Egyptian mysticism. His writings often explored the spiritual consequences of disturbing the dead, and he reportedly viewed the excavation of Tutankhamun's tomb as a desecration of sacred ground, a blasphemy that demanded retribution. In the book London's Curse: Murder, Black Magic, and Tutankhamun in the 1920s, West End by Mark Bainon, a provocative theory emerges. What if the deaths attributed to the curse were not supernatural at all, but the result of deliberate murders orchestrated by Crowley? Bainon suggests that Crowley, enraged by the violation of Tutankhamun's resting place, may have targeted members of the expedition as part of a ritualistic vendetta. The theory points to several suspicious deaths in the years following the tomb's opening, particularly those in London, where Crowley was active during the 1920s. Consider the case of Captain Richard Bethel, Howard Carter's personal secretary. In November 1929, Bethel was found dead in his bed at a London gentleman's club, reportedly smothered in circumstances that baffled investigators. No signs of a struggle were noted, and the cause of death was officially listed as asphyxiation, but the details remained murky. Just months later, Bethel's father, Lord Westbury, met an equally grim fate, leaping to his death from the 7th floor of a building in 1930. His suicide note hinted at despair over his son's mysterious demise, with cryptic references to forces beyond understanding. Bainon notes that when the locations of these deaths are plotted on a map of London, they form a rough pentagram, a symbol often associated with occult practices, and one that Crowley himself frequently employed in his rituals. Could Crowley, with his known penchant for dark ceremonies and his alleged connections to secret societies, have orchestrated these killings to mimic the effects of a curse? The theory gains traction when we consider other deaths linked to the tomb. Aubrey Herbert, Carnarvon's half-brother, died in 1923 under mysterious circumstances, reportedly from blood poisoning after a routine dental procedure, a death some have speculated could have been induced by poisoning. Another figure, Sir Lee Stack, a British official in Egypt who supported the excavation, was assassinated in Cairo in 1924, though this is more likely tied to political unrest than occult motives. The evidence for Crowley's involvement is circumstantial at best. His writings contain no direct admission of guilt, and historical records do not place him at the scenes of the deaths. Furthermore, Crowley's public persona, equal parts showman and provocateur, raises the possibility that his reputation as a dark magician was exaggerated by contemporaries and later writers eager for a sensational story. Yet the theory persists, fueled by the occultist's enigmatic character and the unsettling nature of the fatalities. If true, it would suggest that the curse was not a supernatural force, but a human one, a calculated campaign to sow fear and chaos in the wake of Tutankhamun's discovery. The idea of a shadowy figure like Crowley pulling the strings from behind the scenes adds a layer of dread to an already eerie tale, inviting us to wonder, what other secrets might he have taken to his grave? Another speculative theory posits that the deaths attributed to the curse might have been orchestrated, or at least concealed, by powerful figures seeking to protect secrets hidden within Tutankhamun's tomb. The 1920s were a tumultuous time in Egypt. The country was under British occupation, with rising nationalist movements pushing for independence. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb was not just an archaeological triumph, but a political event, one that could influence public sentiment and international relations. What if the tomb contained more than gold and artifacts? What if it held knowledge, historical, religious, or even technological, that could destabilize the fragile balance of power in the region? Some conspiracy theorists argue that the British government, which exerted significant control over Egypt at the time, may have suppressed information about the tomb's true contents to avoid cultural or political fallout. Imagine, for a moment, that Carter and his team uncovered evidence of advanced technology, perhaps tools or devices that defied the technological understanding of ancient Egypt. Or consider the possibility of religious texts that contradicted the Judeo-Christian narratives dominant in the West. Or inscriptions hinting at extraterrestrial contact, as some fringe archaeologists have suggested. Such discoveries, if made public, could have sparked unrest in Egypt, challenged colonial authority, or even rewritten history in ways that threatened established institutions. Could certain members of the expedition have been silenced to prevent these revelations from coming to light? The mysterious deaths of key figures like Bethel and Gould might then be interpreted not as accidents or curses, but as targeted eliminations by shadowy operatives working to maintain control. Bethel's death by asphyxiation, for instance, could point to an assassin skilled in leaving no trace. Gould's sudden fever might have been induced by poison, a method favored by intelligence agents of the era. Even Carnarvon's infection, though medically plausible, could have been exacerbated by deliberate exposure to pathogens, a tactic not beyond the realm of possibility for a government desperate to keep secrets buried. This theory, while tantalizing, lacks concrete evidence. The artifacts from Tutankhamun's tomb have been extensively studied, and no credible claims of suppressed discoveries have surfaced. The records of the excavation, while incomplete in some areas, do not suggest a systematic cover-up. Yet the idea lingers, fueled by the secrecy surrounding early excavations and the undeniable fact that many documents from the period remain classified or lost. The British Empire was no stranger to manipulation and control. Could they have engineered a narrative of a curse to distract from their own actions? What truths might still lie buried beneath the sands, guarded not by curses but by human hands determined to keep them hidden? A less sinister but equally intriguing theory suggests that the curse of the Pharaohs was a fabrication, or at least an exaggeration, by the media to captivate the public and boost sales. The 1920s were a golden age for sensational journalism, and the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb was a global phenomenon. Newspapers like The Times, The Daily Mail, and The New York Times competed fiercely for readership, often embellishing stories to keep audiences hooked. The death of Lord Carnarvon provided the perfect opportunity to craft a narrative of ancient vengeance, complete with ominous portents and unexplained tragedies. Consider the timing. Carnarvon's death in April 1923 came just as public interest in the tomb was peaking. Reports of flickering lights in Cairo and his dog's simultaneous demise in England were likely apocryphal, yet they spread like wildfire, repeated in countless articles without verification. Subsequent deaths were retroactively linked to the curse, even when the causes were mundane. Howard Carter himself dismissed the idea as Tommy Rot, but his protests were drowned out by the clamor of headlines proclaiming doom. Could the press have colluded with certain figures, perhaps even members of the expedition, to perpetuate the myth, ensuring that Tutankhamun remained front-page news? This theory aligns with historical trends of media sensationalism, but assumes a level of coordination that may be implausible. Still, it raises questions about the power of narrative to shape perception. The 1920s were a time of rapid change, new technologies, shifting political landscapes, and a growing fascination with the exotic. A story of ancient curses fit perfectly into this zeitgeist, offering readers a thrilling escape from the uncertainties of modernity. If the curse was a media construct, what other stories from the era might have been similarly distorted, and what truths might they conceal? Moreover, the media's role could extend beyond mere profit. Some theorists speculate that governments or institutions might have encouraged the curse narrative to distract from more pressing issues. In Egypt, the excavation of Tutankhamun's tomb coincided with growing tensions between British authorities and Egyptian nationalists, who demanded greater control over their cultural heritage. A sensational story about a curse could have shifted public attention away from these political struggles, allowing colonial powers to maintain their grip on the region. While speculative, this idea underscores the complex interplay between media, politics, and history, a dynamic that continues to shape our understanding of the past. Beyond specific conspiracy theories, the curse of the Pharaohs is sustained by a series of unsettling coincidences that defy easy explanation. These patterns, while possibly the result of confirmation bias, create an impression of malevolence that lingers in the imagination. Let us examine some of the most striking examples. The timing of deaths. While only 8 of the 58 people present at the tomb's opening died within a dozen years, the timing of some deaths feels suspiciously abrupt. Carnarvon's demise mere months after entering the tomb set the tone, followed by Gould's fever just weeks after his visit. The clustering of these early deaths, even if statistically explainable, creates a sense of foreboding. The nature of fatalities. Many deaths involved sudden illnesses or accidents, from infections to suicides. Bethel's smothering, Westbury's leap, and Herbert's blood poisoning all carry an air of the inexplicable, as if some unseen hand were at work. Even when medical explanations exist, the circumstances often feel too convenient, too perfectly aligned with the curse narrative. The absence of survivors' testimony. Few surviving members of the expedition spoke publicly about their experiences in the tomb, leaving gaps in the record that invite speculation. Carter himself was reticent, focusing on the scientific aspects of the discovery rather than its emotional or spiritual impact. Did he fear the curse, or was he guarding secrets of his own? Symbolic connections. Some theorists point to symbolic links between the deaths and ancient Egyptian beliefs. For instance, Carnarvon's mosquito bite was on his cheek, near a mark on Tutankhamun's mummy, a coincidence that fueled speculation about a mystical connection. While likely meaningless, such details add to the eerie atmosphere surrounding the curse. These patterns could be chalked up to human psychology. Once the idea of a curse took hold, any misfortune was attributed to it. Yet their cumulative effect is undeniably chilling. What if there is more to these events than mere chance? What if the curse, whether supernatural or man-made, is a puzzle waiting to be solved? The coincidences alone are not proof of conspiracy, but they serve as a haunting reminder of how little we truly know about the forces, seen and unseen, that shape our world. The Curse of the Pharaohs has left an indelible mark on popular culture, inspiring countless works of fiction, film, and art. From Universal Studios' 1932 classic The Mummy, starring Boris Karloff as the resurrected Imhotep, to modern blockbusters like The Mummy, 1999, the idea of ancient vengeance has captured the collective imagination. These stories often amplify the curse narrative, portraying mummies as malevolent beings bent on punishing those who disturb their rest. A far cry from the historical reality of Egyptian burial practices. Literature, too, has embraced the curse. Authors like Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, contributed to early speculation by suggesting that elementals, spirits bound to the tomb, might be responsible for Carnarvon's death. Agatha Christie, inspired by the Tutankhamun discovery, penned stories involving cursed artifacts and mysterious deaths in Egypt. Even today, novels and video games continue to explore the theme, blending historical fact with supernatural intrigue. This cultural fascination reflects a deeper human need to grapple with the unknown. The Curse of the Pharaohs offers a narrative framework for understanding the inexplicable. a way to impose order on chaos. But it also raises questions about how our obsession with the curse might obscure the truth. By focusing on the sensational, are we overlooking the more mundane, but potentially more revealing aspects of the story? And what role does our imagination play in perpetuating the myth? Today, the curse of the Pharaohs remains a subject of fascination, even as science offers increasingly plausible explanations for the deaths. Advances in microbiology have confirmed the presence of harmful pathogens in ancient tombs, supporting the theory that bacteria or fungi could have caused illnesses among early explorers. The radiation hypothesis, while still under investigation, provides another layer of rationality, suggesting that long-term exposure to low-level radiation might have contributed to cancers like Carter's lymphoma. Yet these explanations do not fully dispel the allure of mystery. The Aleister Crowley theory, while lacking hard evidence, taps into our fear of the unknown and the possibility of hidden malice. The idea of a government cover-up resonates with modern distrust of authority, reflecting contemporary anxieties about secrecy and control. The media hoax theory, meanwhile, highlights the power of narrative to shape perception, a lesson as relevant today as it was in the 1920s. Perhaps the true curse lies not in ancient magic or secret plots, but in our own imagination, a collective desire to believe in forces beyond our understanding. The deaths of Carnarvon, Bethel, and others may never be fully explained, but their stories continue to haunt us, whispering questions that echo through time. What secrets did Tutankhamun take to his grave? And what lengths might someone or something go to protect them? As we delve deeper into the mystery of the curse of the Pharaohs, new questions emerge, each more tantalizing than the last. What if the curse is not a singular phenomenon but part of a larger pattern? A series of events orchestrated across centuries to guard the secrets of the ancients. Could there be other tombs, other curses, waiting to be uncovered in the sands of Egypt? And what role might modern technology play in unraveling these enigmas? Tools like ground-penetrating radar, DNA analysis, or even artificial intelligence that could decode long-lost scripts. Consider, too, the possibility of undiscovered chambers within Tutankhamun's tomb itself. In 2015, Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves proposed that hidden rooms might lie behind the walls of the burial chamber, potentially containing the tomb of Nefertiti, Tutankhamun's stepmother or sister. While subsequent scans have been inconclusive, the idea of unopened spaces, sealed since antiquity, fuels speculation about what else might be waiting to be found. Could these chambers hold the key to the curse, whether in the form of inscriptions, artifacts, or even traps designed by ancient priests to punish intruders? Then there are the broader implications for our understanding of ancient Egypt. The Egyptians were masters of architecture, astronomy, and medicine, fields in which they achieved feats that still baffle modern scholars. What if their knowledge extended into realms we have yet to comprehend? What if the curse is not a curse at all, but a warning, a message from the past about the dangers of meddling with forces beyond our grasp? The curse of the Pharaohs is more than a historical footnote. It is a mirror reflecting our deepest fears and curiosities. Whether you see it as a supernatural enigma, a sinister conspiracy, or a cultural artifact, its power lies in its ambiguity. The deaths following the opening of Tutankhamun's tomb may have been mere coincidence, but the shadows they cast stretch far beyond the rationale. As you ponder the evidence, the occult connections, the geopolitical stakes, the media's role, ask yourself, what if there is more to this tale than meets the eye? What if the curse is not a myth, but a mystery waiting for its final chapter to be written? In the end, the sands of Egypt hold their secrets close. Perhaps one day, another explorer will uncover the truth, or fall victim to the same unseen forces that claimed those who came before. Until then, the curse of the Pharaohs remains a tantalizing enigma, inviting us to peer into the darkness and wonder what lies just beyond the veil of history. Step carefully, for the past is not as silent as it seems, and the whispers of the Pharaohs may yet have more to say.